Hello and welcome back to the Toffee Blues Podcast. This is, of course, your source for all things Everton. As always, my name is Thomas Robertson. Joining me, Ellis Nordhoff. After what has been a fairly positive week, Ellis, we've done a few of these podcasts now. We haven't yet had a win to talk about. We then delay a couple of days, and all of a sudden we've got two. How are you feeling, mate?
Fairly positive. I'd say more than that. Wow, I'm feeling very, very positive. I cannot believe what we've seen this week, and I'm just so happy we finally got that first win on the board, and we went and backed it up with another one, didn't we? Two away from home, two on the road, massive, just huge.
Yeah, and not just wins as well. Convincing performances in both of them. We were, by far the better team, and it just gives you so much more confidence for the rest of the season because we've known that the underlying numbers have been there. I mean, we've spoken relentlessly about XG and how we performed against Fulham and Wolves and didn't manage to score or pick up the win, but we've played convincingly, and then we've actually picked up the 3 points and a cup win. I mean, fourth round of the cup is the lofty heights. I don't even know what happens in this round. So very excited to see what happens next, and a fairly favourable draw as well. But before we get into all that cup chatter, we may as well talk about Brentford. Yeah, and last time we spoke, we spoke that Brentford had a slightly shaky start to the season. They hadn't been terribly good. They picked up a win and a few points here and there, but we did say there was an opportunity there, and I think it's fair to say that we definitely seized that.
Oh, we took it without a doubt, didn't we? What a performance, start to finish. I just thought it was fantastic. Went one ahead, and then obviously they pegged us back 1-1, and normally that's where you worry that we might crumble, and we absolutely didn't, did we? And went into half-time 1-1, definitely undeserved, really. I think Brentford scored with their first chance, didn't they? And at that point, we had to capitalise and we had to win that game, because if we didn't come out with a win from that game, it would have been so unfair. And they did in the end, and they really stepped it up. And to win 3-1 away from home against a team that had lost once at home in 18 games is just so impressive.
Yeah, definitely that early goal from Decore definitely just kind of relaxed everyone a bit. I think then, as you mentioned, they did pull that one back. But I think one of the main talking points is we have strength and depth in the striking position. I think that there were a few complaints when Calvert-Lewin came on because it was just a like for like substitution. But ideally, surely that's what we want. We've had better kind of run them ragged for 60 minutes or so. I can't remember when it was that Calvert-Lewin came on, and then you bring on a like for like player because Beto was doing a good job. He's done a good job since he came in. He's still looking for that first Premier League goal, though. I'm sure it will come. We are yet to see Beto and Calvert-Lewin up front, Ellis, but I'm hoping that we
It's
will
coming.
soon. Maybe this weekend before we'll talk about the Luton match. We will get onto that, but having that like for like substitution, having that strength and depth, just it helps so much, didn't it? And Calvert Lewin gets his first goal after what's been a tricky start of the season for him.
Yeah, it's been so tough on Dominic Calvert-Lewin the last few years, hasn't it? And I was in the away end at the GTEC, and there were some worries when Beto was coming off, because you don't want to change something when it's working well. But the fact that you can make a like-for-like substitution of the quality of Dominic Calvert-Lewin just shows now we finally do have that depth up front, and Beto will get his league goal eventually. And he's putting in the performances. He's working extremely hard, and he offers us a lot, and he does tire at 60, 70 minutes. So it's the time to bring Dom on, and Dom's absolutely brimming with confidence at the minute. And I was so pleased for him to get that goal, because I think that's what he needed to really kickstart. And of course, as we've seen since, he scored yet again. And now if we've got those two players and one of them's going to be on the bench, then you've always got that choice then to bring someone on and freshen up, because it's been the story of our season, hasn't it, really? We've not had options off the bench because of our injury crisis and the quite small squad that we have anyway. So to be able to bring Dom on and then for him to score as well, it's just fantastic.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. I'm so pleased for him as well because obviously he has doubled up this week. He did manage to score 2 goals during the week. Picked up that one against Villa as well. But just having that depth, not only does it give you options, it also provides competition for places. I saw someone tweet. I'm not sure who it was, that Beto might be just the best thing that's ever happened to Calvert-Lewin, and I completely agree. Not only does it give him the kind of the space. Well, it's the space to breathe because he knows that he doesn't have to just be thrown straight in, but then less space to breathe as well because he's been given this instant competition all the time. Competition for places is perfect in every team. It's what every manager wants, and I think we've fantastically done that. I think they look like pretty similar players. We knew they would be, but just having that ability to have one stretch the defence, hopefully pick up a goal. We know that Beto didn't, but really caused problems for the defence all game long. And then the defence looks at the sideline, he's coming off, Calvert-Lewin's coming on. You must just, if you're a defender coming up against that, you must just be absolutely livid because you're not going to catch a break from either of them, are you? And it gives both of them the chance to really develop provide competition for each other. And going forwards, I'm pretty confident in the striking department now. I mean, we haven't even really seen young Chimiti at all. We'll have to see if he manages to pick up some minutes, but he's another player once he develops who will be kind of similar in profile, if that's someone we want to use as well. So it looks like that's definitely the mold that Dyche has looked for in a striker. And well, elsewhere we managed to score a goal from a set piece as well. I mean, what's better than a Dwight McNeil corner for a James Tarkowski header? That's absolutely fantastic.
It's how we started the Dyche era, isn't it? And it's how it's continuing now. I'm just so glad that the set pieces have been sorted. They must have worked on it in that week, because in recent games, we've been wondering what on earth's been going on with the set pieces. They've just not been what they were at all. And you'd think that'd be a given with the Dyche team. You'd think set pieces were going to be on it. And they are again now. James Garner, Dwight McNeil, they're my two set piece takers for me. They're just fantastic at it. And McNeil can really put in a good corner. And when you've got the likes of Jared Branthwaite, James Tarkowski, whoever's playing up front, you've got Amadou Onana as well. There's so much aerial threat. And we have to make use of that, don't we? Because how many games are going to be fine margins this season where a set piece can decide it? And, you know, if we'd have perhaps been stronger on set pieces earlier in the season, we might have nicked a few more points. So for me, it's such an important thing that has to be coached. And, you know, we looked at Arsenal a few weeks ago. They did absolutely loads of coaching on their set pieces. Every single one was planned. And I think that's something that's really important. If even the best teams are doing it, the likes of Arsenal, then it just shows how, you know, in the Premier League, fine margins are everything on it. You have to, if you can gain any sort of percentage, especially when you're not one of the better sides in the league, you do.
Yeah, absolutely. As you said, we were growing frustrated at the set pieces. I think Ashley Young was probably, he's not top of the set piece takers, but while McNeil was injured and Garner wasn't in the side, his corners were looking lackluster. His set pieces weren't tremendous. Where when you've got McNeil and Garner both there too, you know, they've both got a fantastic delivery on them. It really gives you that option, and hopefully we will see more of that going forward in the season. I'd imagine we will. We've spoken at length about what the height we've got in the team. We do have set piece takers, so it's something that we were wanting to see, and finally that has come to fruition. And while we're on James Garner, we may as well talk about two midfielders who had an absolutely barnstorming week. Himself and Amadou Onana. Of course, Garner did start on the right against Brentford, which isn't something that we wanted to see, but he managed to pick up that assist, and then both of them in midweek as well. I mean, what a week those two have had. They've been absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I think a defining week for those two young players who've absolutely made their mark this week. And James Garner, I'm full of credit for that lad, because he has played everywhere, hasn't he? And he will get his chance to settle into midfield eventually. But the fact that wherever he's been put, he's done his absolute best. And we know he's not a winger yet. Against Brentford, he was so important to the team, and the way he could just drop in sometimes and help out. And yes, there was a bit of a disappointment when Danjuma was dropped against Brentford, but we have to concede that Sean Dyche was bang on with that, and it proved to be the perfect plan of remaining solid, like he said, to keep that team shape, and it worked in beating Brentford. And then James Garner got his reward for all of these weeks of playing out of position by playing in central midfield against Villa, and him and Amadou Onana together were fantastic. And whether he's going to play that in the league, whether he's brave enough to do that just yet with two young players, it'd be interesting to see. But, you know, what an audition that was against Villa. Amadou Onana was like the best I've seen him for quite a while now, snapping into tackles, really just using those attributes, because he hasn't always used them in recent weeks this season. You know, you look at him and go, this player, you could get so much more out of him. And it will come because he's a young player. You know, not every game is going to be perfect from a lad who's 21, 22. So those two, I'm so excited for what they can bring. And I imagine we'd want to build our midfield around them for years to come if they can stay at the club.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a good sign for James Garner that even despite the fact that he hasn't been playing centrally, that Dyche wants to get him into the side somewhere. That can only bode well for a young player. And we did manage to see him centrally against Villa. And it does look like that will be our midfield partnership going forwards. Of course, Idrissa Gueye, he's staying in the team. He's not had a bad season by any means. I think maybe some of the criticism that's been levelled at him has been quite unwarranted. We know that the fella's not going to score goals. I don't know why he decides to shoot every game. I mean, I've never seen a shot of his go anything other than like 20 yards over the bar. But it looks like that will be the midfield pairing going forwards. Gueye probably will be going to AFCON, of course, in January. I think this is the last year of his contract as well. So maybe we are now starting to see what it's going to look like in the future. And I think both of them have had a fantastic week. We know that we want to see Garner centrally. if Dyche wants him out on the wing, he's more than happy to do that, which is it's a great string to have to your bow. If you're kind of happy to play anywhere under the manager, Dyche is going to love you for that. And Onana, I'm just absolutely delighted for him, because another player where there's been criticism levelled at him, and I'm not really sure why. He's still a very young player. We knew that last season when he came in, he barely played. Well, he hadn't played a full season of senior football. We brought him in for a fairly hefty fee, but he was one of Europe's kind of most wanted young central midfielders, and he's just looked absolutely fantastic. I know that there was probably some interest in him in the summer. Whether that was going to fully materialise, I'm not convinced. We'll have to see how that develops again this summer, but that's something to think way, way down the line. I don't want to start thinking about that yet, but I completely agree with you. I think it's probably the best we've seen Onana since he joined. He's just been dominating the midfield, and we knew he's had these attributes, like you mentioned. We knew it's all about just getting the best out of him, really, and any criticism that's been sent his way has been pretty unwarranted, I think. And it's a 3-1 win against Brentford away. It's an away win. I think at that point we all thought, wow, I mean, this week can't get much better. We picked up a win away from home in a convincing performance. I didn't think for 1 minute that Brentford deserved to get really back into that. I thought we were the much better side. Then all of a sudden, like they say, it's like a bus. You wait ages for one, and two come along at once. We then go away in the cup against a side who, let's not forget, what a month ago, maybe, I think it's just over a month ago, we turned up at Villa Park and got battered 4-0 in a game where we looked miles off the pace. At that point, we were all feeling very, very kind of down on our luck. We've gone there again. We've kind of rejuvenated ourselves. We've gathered up again, and we've put in another really, really convincing performance.
A really good performance, and a performance that can't be understated as well. Villa put out a relatively strong side. We're praising the midfielders of Everton here, and they were up against some serious midfielders. Yuri Tielemans, Kamara was playing as well, wasn't he? They had John McGinn. I think he might have been at left back, but Villa didn't play an extremely weak team by no means. It was a lot of first teamers, and they had to throw on pretty much all the first teamers by the end of it because they were struggling. And we were absolutely fantastic again. And to see that 2 away wins in a row, I was there in that away end again. And I remember at the start of the game and a couple of days before, I'd heard about the murmurs of Villa fans weren't too happy. Neil told me on the podcast that, he thought that it's likely that Villa fans aren't going to turn up to the game because they just weren't impressed with ticket prices at all for the cup. And it proved right in the end. They were not there, were they? There was so many empty seats at Villa, and our away end was just packed, completely packed. And the Blues were so loud, of course they were, because we've just beat Brentford, and that good feeling's carrying on. And when you get one win, it's easier to get the next one then. And they did just that with a great performance again. Once again, we were the better side, and 2-1 probably flattered them in the end because they got that incredibly lucky goal. And I feel so sorry for Jordan Pickford, because that lad deserves a clean sheet from these last 2 games, and he hasn't got one. And he must be furious as a goalkeeper, because that's what you want, isn't it? But at the end of the day, for the club and the team, the most important thing is we got the win, and we got 2 of them. So a great week so far.
Yeah, away games, what's the most important thing they can do is score first, and in both games we did that fairly early on, a lot earlier in the Brentford game. But that first goal, James Garner, I mean, what a finish! I mean, we've just waxed lyrical about him and Onana. It was those two that linked up again. Onana played that fantastic through ball. James Garner just smashed it in front post. I mean, those two are just on fire at the moment. They must be loving playing together, because the link up that they've shown in the last couple of games it's so promising going forwards. And I'm so pleased for Garner to get that goal. The assist was fantastic. I'm not sure what I was more impressed by, to be honest. I think probably equal footing in terms of how impressed I was. But in both games, we picked up that early goal. It really just kind of settles you into the game. It allows you to kind of dictate from there. Once you're 1-0 up, you can play the way that you want to play. You don't have to be chasing the game by any means. And yeah, well, fantastic start. 15 minutes in, I'm not sure. I know you were there, but I'm not sure what you made of that early goal. I mean, I can't even imagine what the atmosphere was like.
Oh, it was fantastic. Nearly 5,000 Evertonians in that away end, and when that went in, to get that first goal is huge in away games, exactly like you said. And Amadou Onana, that like snap through ball that went to James Garner was superb. And then James Garner finished it like a striker. And we don't truly know what type of midfielder James Garner is going to end up being, whether he's a 6, whether he's an 8. He's shown at the moment that he's a jack of all trades and he can do quite a lot. And that finish was something of a number 8 would really do. And it was superb, and he deserved it. He needs his first goal. We always talk about midfielders. We want them to chip in. Of course, Decore is chipping in. And it's time now to see James Garner and Amadou Onana pop up with the few, and they just need the first to then start getting a few more. So I was well pleased for James Garner. And the thing is, you said about us getting the first goal. Yes, that's fantastic. But I think it has to be said that it isn't a case of just, oh, we only do well when we get the first goal, because in both games we faced adversity and in both games we overcame it. In the Villa game, at the end of that game, we were 2-0 up, and then suddenly they get the luckiest goal I've ever seen, and it goes to 2-1. So then you've got to hang on, haven't you? And that is a show of resilience from the team, and I was really impressed with that. But before that, the second goal, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, mate, superb.
Yeah, I'm so pleased for him. Picked up 2 goals this week. It's exactly the kind of goal that we've kind of been expecting from Calvert-Lewin when he was fully fit. Just harrying defences. He's there to pounce on mistakes. Has that pace to get him behind, and just showed all the composure of a prime Romelu Lukaku. It was Lukaku-esque. I saw someone tweet that again. I can't credit it, unfortunately, but it did feel Lukaku-esque that once he's through on goal, I don't think anyone really had any doubt that he was going to miss it. It was a really composed finish, because I think it probably looks quite easy, but it's definitely not that simple. It's not that simple to finish from there. I know that he had acres of space, and it's a goal that you'd want him to be scoring, but he did just that. And I think that was just the perfect way to, not only was it an early goal in the first half, an early goal in the second half to take us 2-0 up. And look, both sides went for it. I mean, there were some rotations, of course, where that is to be expected. Well, I didn't expect to see a full strength lineup, but Dyche's clearly fancying the cup. They look like they fancied it as well. But as he said at half time, it was definitely a positive sign. The raft of changes. I mean, Zaniolo had already come on. Then they sent on Kamara, Watkins, and Digne. That can only be a positive sign that we were doing something right. I did think it was quite funny that we bring on Ashley Young at half time and they bring on Lucas Digne. I thought that was an interesting little parallel. But by that point, they were full strength side, and we had everything to cope with that for the rest of the match.
Yeah, we beat Aston Villa, who are in Europe, and I think I saw a stat actually that we haven't knocked a Premier League team who are in Europe out since 2003-04, Newcastle, I think that was. And Dominic Calvert-Lewin's finish is the one that secured that. And we always talk about needing that second goal in an away game to kill it off and just feel comfortable for a bit and see the game out. Did it against Brentford, and they did it against Villa. And Calvert-Lewin, you have to credit him for that finish, absolutely, because he got all the time in the world, and people can say that makes it easy, but it doesn't. If you're thinking about where'd you put it, and especially with the weight that's been on Dom's shoulders in the last couple of years, he'd be thinking he has to bury that, and he did just that, and he deserves a lot of credit for that. And getting that second goal is absolutely crucial to getting through the game, isn't it? And, if we hadn't done that and we'd have been pegged back to 1-1 after that incredible performance, it'd have been so disappointing. If we'd have had to go into a penalty shootout when we completely controlled the game, it would have been so undeserved.
Yeah, it was a fantastic performance from start to finish, really. And when I saw Beto lining up on the sideline and I saw the board go up, and I saw Dan Juma was coming off, I was so excited for a second. I thought we might see that too up top, but it was Gay that came on for him, and Beto, of course, replaced Calvert-Lewin, but kind of a like-for-like substitution like we saw against Brentford. Once you've got that ability to just rotate very similar players, no defence wants to come up against that. And then after that, as you mentioned, I don't think Villa really deserved anything, and the scoreline definitely flattered them, because then in the 83rd minute, Kamara pops up with that deflected goal. I won't mention who it was deflected off. It's not really his fault. We can't really go at him for that. But
not at all.
Yeah, it was a late goal. Really unfortunate for Pickford not to keep a clean sheet. And then obviously they were going to throw everything at it after that point. But that gave them the chance to get into it. And then we just didn't really give them a sniff. I thought it was fantastic from start to finish, really. And as you said, that scoreline definitely flattered them. I'm not sure that. Well, I am sure that wasn't a 2-1 game by any means. 2 ridiculously confident away performances in a week, 2 away wins. Ellis, mate, I'm over the moon. I don't really know. I can't even contain my excitement. I'm so excited for the rest of the season now.
Yeah, it's just dreamland, isn't it? Getting 2 big away wins like that. Us Blues, we go home and away, up and down the country, and we deserve some repayment for that, and we're getting it, and that's exactly what I want to see. I think something's clicked with these Dyche tactics. I think we're starting to see patterns of play. We're starting to see exactly what he's trying to do. And this is why I had a bit of faith when things were going wrong. I felt like there was a turning point that was going to come. And hopefully this is the start of a good season for us. And, it's a huge week like this week. And of course, we've got 2 massive home games coming up too. And if we've sorted the away form, which I'm not going to get ahead of myself, but if they can start putting those performances in and the whole mindset change has happened and we are no longer going into away games expecting to lose, then you can pick up plenty of points on the road. But the next thing we need to sort is the home form, isn't it?
Absolutely. And we will now take a short break before we get into that because we have picked up a home cup draw. We also have a massive home game coming up this weekend. But I mean, that's a positive half of a podcast. I don't think it gets much better than that. But join us in just a moment where we will be talking about the draw. We'll talk about the rest of the cup as well. Of course, it was quite a busy week in terms of cup matches. And of course, we will talk about the massive match coming up this weekend. It is Luton Town at home. So join us in just a moment. Welcome back to the podcast. Welcome back to the second half. We've discussed the Brentford and Aston Villa wins, 2 away wins in a week. Of course, when you win a cup game, that means you are on the next round of the draw. I know we're not particularly used to that in the last couple of years. But looking ahead now, we have drawn Burnley at home. Burnley, who went through pretty convincingly against Salford. To be fair, not a bad fixture. I really don't mind that. Out of the teams that are left, I know that City went out to Newcastle, but Burnley at home, pretty solid draw. Happy with that?
Yeah, I'm pleased with it. It's not the most exciting draw, is it? But you don't really want to be playing a huge team at this point. And, you never know when you play the smaller teams if they get massively up for it. So sometimes actually playing a lower Premier League side is the best option. And I'm glad we've got a home draw. I think it was the last 6 Carabao Cup draws we've been drawn away. So it's nice to finally get back to Goodison. And, hopefully after these next 2 league home games, we can have a bit of home momentum. And, the Burnley game, it is going to be difficult, but you can't complain at that draw, really. And for the opportunity to get into the quarterfinals with that, we were just talking before about how surprising it is. The Carabao Cup just seems to speed up and accelerate like after the first round. And, we won yesterday, whenever that was, even we beat Villa. And then suddenly we're 1 game away from the quarters. It's exciting. And is it maybe time to start dreaming? Maybe.
So I've been dreaming since the start of the season, mate. I said first day of the season we're winning the EFL Carabao Cup this season. That is what I said. Yeah, I'm really happy with Burnley at home. As you said, sometimes when you come up against lower league opposition, they're way more up for it and there's potential upset. But not that I'm saying Burnley won't be up for it, but it's a home draw against a side who they haven't exactly started the Premier League season tremendously. Will they be prioritising the cup? Who knows? They might want to rest players if they're trying to focus on staying up this season. And I think that's pretty solid in terms of a draw because there are still some big teams left in it. I know that Newcastle managed to somehow beat City with Paul Dummett and Lascelles. I mean, I had no idea what was going on there. I didn't actually watch the match, obviously, because I was watching the Villa match. But, I mean, who knows what's gone on there. In terms of major upsets, not too many. Ipswich, of course, knocking out Wolves, Premier League opposition. Decent game, that one, 3-2, to be fair. But, I mean, it's a big scalp for them, but Ipswich, I mean, they've started this season tremendously, haven't they? I don't know what Kieran McKenna's doing over there. They were fantastic in League One, and this year in the Championship, they're doing tremendously again. So, yeah, potentially a tricky draw for whoever drew Ipswich. Fulham are away at Ipswich, so that could be an interesting one. Elsewhere, fairly straightforward across the rest of the board, really. Not too many upsets, of course. Brentford going out to Arsenal, Brighton going out to Chelsea. Brighton really decent side. Chelsea. I guess that is an upset.
Minnows Chelsea beat Brighton.
Yeah, no, of course. I hadn't even considered that. But mainly across the board, other than those few results that you'd expect. Apart from, of course, Exeter City, 10-man Exeter City knocking out Luton Town. Luton, of course, a side that we are coming up against this weekend. And just a fantastic opportunity, really, to get 3 wins in a week.
That'd be incredible, wouldn't it? It would be fantastic. And they'll be so disappointed to have been knocked out by Exeter. I'm sure it's not the biggest of their priorities this season, but to lose to Exeter is really disappointing for them as a Premier League club. But it's one of them, isn't it? You look at it and go, it's probably the best home game we have all season. So I think it's a no-brainer. We have to take 3 points from it because if you don't, suddenly a bit of that positivity just fades then, doesn't it? We want to get a win here, give ourselves the best chance possible of then making it another win against Bournemouth because that we could really do with that. We could really do with some points on the board. And I think the home form needs to turn soon. And hopefully, if they have the right intensity, the right urgency at home, we should be able to beat these.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even trying to sound overconfident. Luton are a side that we should be beating at home. I mean,
without a doubt.
Fair play to them being in the Premier League. I mean, they played absolutely fantastically last season, but they're not a side that we should be kind of doubtful of beating. This is absolutely a game where we should pick it up 3 points. I know I said they lost to 10-man Exeter City. The red card was in like the 88th minute or something, but it still
The
counts.
fella
It
that
all
scored
counts.
then got sent off.
Yeah, Dimitri Mitchell with his 4 line celebration as well. I've been enjoying his tweets this week. The former Manchester United wonder kid he just is perennially called for the rest of his career. But yeah, looking at this match, it has to be 3 points. This is one that we were looking at earlier on in the season when we kind of looked at the first run of fixtures, and we did expect to be on more points than this. We haven't. That hasn't worked out like that. Probably didn't look at Brentford away thinking we'd win there. So I mean, you just have to take everything with a pinch of salt, really. And Luton Town at home, as I said, fair play to them to being in the league, but I can't imagine any Premier League side will be looking at them thinking, well, we want to pick up a point there. You have to be looking at them and saying that we need 3 points, especially to keep up the momentum, because as you say, it's been such a positive week. And then if you kind of round it off with a loss at home to Luton, or even a draw would be tremendously underwhelming as well. You have to look at that and think anything other than 3 points would be a massive disappointment.
Yeah, I'm largely positive about it. I'm excited to be back at Goodison. The crowd will be massively up for it, won't they, after seeing what we've seen this week? And, Luton will give you a game. Of course they will, because they are battlers. They're hard-working. They've got 2 good frontmen up there. They've played 3 at the back for most games this season. So, of course, they're going to be a tough nut to crack. Completely different game to the away games. We're going to have to take the game to them, which is going to show another side of us. And hopefully we can start to find that winning formula at home as well. One big worry for me that we haven't mentioned yet is a certain Scouser who plays for these, who may or may not be fit. It's touch and go at the moment. Waiting to hear from Rob Edwards on that one. But a certain Ross Barkley might be at Goodison Park.
I mean, that it's just written, isn't it? You can just know, you can see it written. If we end up losing at home to Luton Town to a Ross Barkley winner, I'll be packing in after that. I think we should just not do the podcast for the rest of the season. I just can't be bothered.
Oh, it can't happen. It really can't.
Yeah, but as you said, if you look at Luton's, their start of the Premier League season, are they still 1 game behind? I think they are, because it was their rearranged fixture with Burnley that didn't go ahead. But a loss to Brighton. I lost 3-0 to Chelsea. Losing 3-0 to Chelsea these days is not what it was. I mean, that is, that's a fairly emphatic loss. They scraped through in the second round of the Cup against Gillingham, losing to West Ham, losing to Fulham. I mean, all the best sides lose to Fulham. I don't blame them for that. But then the draw against Wolves as well, and then out in the Cup. They've not had a great start to the season, as I've said over and over again. I hesitate to kind of just reiterate this point constantly, but it just has to be 3 points. We have to continue the momentum we've had. It's been 2 massive away performances, but as you've said, we need to correct that home form, because something that we relied on for years and years was our home form, and the past few seasons that's kind of just gone out the window. And then when your away form has been as shocking as ours has been for the past couple of years as well, that's the entire reason we've ended up in the position we have been, because at the end of the day, we haven't been winning games of football. If you're not good at home and you're not good away, you are inevitably going to be in a relegation battle. But I don't know. Have you got any predictions, mate? Do you dare to make a score prediction for this match?
I think I'll go with 2-0. I'll be slightly conservative on this one. I'd love us to go and absolutely thrash a team. I think we're due one of them, aren't we, at home? We're due a chance to go and just thrash somebody, but I'm not going to get ahead of myself. Any win I'd take a 1-0 against these. We need to get through this game. We can't underestimate them. And if we see DCL and better up front, then I'll be very excited. And I might up it to 3 after that, but I'll go with 2. I'll go cautious. What are you saying?
I'm going to go with the 3-0. I'm so confident after this week. I'd probably predict we'd beat anyone 3-0 this weekend. It doesn't matter who they are.
City, yeah, go on.
Yeah, City 3-0, why not? No, I think I really just want a convincing home performance. Just keep the mood up, keep the momentum. And a man
definitely
who we barely mentioned, if we're looking ahead maybe to the starting 11, who I completely forgot while we were discussing against Aston Villa, man who we might get to see is Jack Harrison. I'm not sure. It looks like we've got a fairly clean bill of health. I'm not sure. I know Mikalenko came off at half time, but I'm not sure if that was injury wise or tactical. We haven't heard from Dyche yet, I don't think. So in terms of it looks like a pretty full, pretty good bill of health. What do you make of the starting 11 then? Because we have chopped and changed this season. We've seen Garner outright. We've seen him through the middle. We ended up with 3 at the back against Villa, which we haven't really seen this season at all. So are you expecting more back to the 4 at the back, or are you expecting maybe stick with the proven method of beating Villa with the 3 at the back?
There's a lot of interesting situations with this because they're going five, and if you match them with five and we've got the better players, you'd think that could be an option. But then I think there'd be a lot of disappointment in the fan base if we started with five at the back against Luton, wouldn't there? So I think they'll probably go with four. And there's a decision to make in midfield, I'd say. James Garner absolutely deserves to start centrally, and perhaps they'll look at Abdoulaye Doucouré and maybe go, maybe it's time to take him out for the home game. And we see how well he thrives in away games, but perhaps we need somebody better on the ball to help control possession, because remember, this is going to be a completely different game, isn't it? We're going to have to have most of the possession. We're going to have to carve out chances. So perhaps that's what we need instead. He's got a decision to make up front as well, Beto or Dom or both. I wouldn't risk both. I definitely wouldn't do that the way it's going. Perhaps if we need it in other games, when maybe, but not yet. I feel like this week, just stick with one up front. And I think he'll probably go with Dom because performance-wise, he's slightly edged it recently, but fitness-wise, he might just stick with Beto. I think he'll go with Dom, though. But there's a lot of interesting things to choose from selection-wise, and that's just because we've got options now, which is great.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think we will probably see Calvert-Lewin starting, which is maybe slightly harsh on Beto, but I think both have performed well. It just so happens that one of them scored twice this week, so you can't really overlook that when it comes to being a striker. I mean, they both perform well, and Beto has really contributed to these performances, but when you're a striker, you need to score goals, and I think if Calvert-Lewin's scoring, he was probably going to want him to keep that momentum up, and then I'd imagine around the 60th minute mark, we'll see him come off for Beto, and I don't think we will play three at the back. I think that's highly unlikely at home to Luton Town. I mean, I think there will be a big disappointment if we end up doing that. And look, we know what they're going to play. They've been playing the system for a while now, and I think it's always a risk if you're going to try and match someone's system when they've been drilled in it for months and months, and we haven't. Even though we do have the better players, I think it's always a risk to. There's no point in just going like for like, do what you're good at. And as you mentioned, I unfortunately don't think we'll see the two up top, because is it worth the risk maybe wanting them getting injured? I don't think so. I don't think you want that. I think you just want to keep that rotation option because it's been working perfectly for the last week or so. So I do think we'll see Calvert-Lewin start up top. I would like to see that midfield of Garner and Onana continuing because they're in, fine form. I do think we'll probably still see Doucouré though, because Dice clearly loves him. He is a massive part of why we stayed up last season. He's been pretty good this season as well. Only picked up a goal, of course, that early goal against Brentford. And Doucouré is always just a weird one, isn't he? I mean, in terms of, composure on the ball and playing the ball, he's probably not the man you'd go to straight away. But what he offers offensively, he's been absolutely fantastic. And I do think he will start. But I think it will be a relatively offensive formation. I don't think we'll end up seeing Garner on the right, which is generally more conservative. I think we will see Danjuma and McNeil, I'd imagine, will probably start. He looks like he's back to full fitness again. I'd imagine we will then see Jack Harrison later on in the game, who, I mean, I don't know how that against Villa. I know it wasn't his shot. I know it came off John McGinn, but he was so unlucky maybe to not for that not to fall to him against Villa and took that one away. And I just want to see him get started now. He played relatively well against Villa. Of course, the side that tried to hijack him from us. I think he will then get minutes, and we will eventually see him fully integrated into the side. And there's just now all of a sudden so many options where we were about a month ago talking about how kind of threadbare the squad was and how much we were struggling. All of a sudden, we've now got options. We're deciding between Beto and Calvert-Lewin up front. We're deciding who to put on the wing. It's all looking pretty rosy at this point, and it looks fairly set up for us to pick up another 3 points.
Yeah, the options are so important, aren't they? The fact that we can bring on Beto and Jack Harrison is massive. And I think Harrison, he looked really, really, really good against Villa. And, I expected him to be a little bit rusty. Of course, it's his first professional top game since he's been back. Because he did play for the under-21s for 45 minutes, but it's not the same intensity, is it? And he's come straight in and he played really, really well. He worked hard. When he got it, he looked good as well. He wasn't just working hard, it wasn't just that. His through ball to Dom when he nearly scored, that could have been an incredible assist. And I think the fact that you've got him off the bench, Dwight McNeil's undroppable at the moment. And I imagine it'll be Danjuma and Harrison fighting for the place on Saturday. One of them will get it. Whether Dyche wants to start Harrison fitness-wise, I don't know where he's at in that point. But, Danjuma is one who I really hope comes into a bit of form soon, because he did get a couple, didn't he, at the start of the season? And I feel like it's just waiting for him to explode now. I think with a bit of confidence, once again, we've seen confidence with the strikers, with Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I think that's the same for Danjuma. I think I'd love to see Danjuma get a home goal. If he got that, that would kickstart him for me. But to have Jack Harrison there as well, we've suddenly got options, and options are massively useful.
Yeah, I really want Danjuma to kick on, and I'm sure he will. I think he will probably start because we've seen Dyche be not overly cautious. He's stuck to his kind of fitness plans for his players, like we saw with Calvert-Lewin. Doesn't want to rush anyone back too soon and then have them out for longer. It's better to kind of wait a couple more games to wait until they're fully fit. And I think it's all about just getting minutes into Jack Harrison, and I don't think he will start. I'd imagine we will probably see him from the bench, but Ellis, I'm feeling fairly confident, mate. I think that's a tremendous kind of just under an hour of discussion that we've had there, but that does pretty much bring us to the end of the podcast. Just before we go, I do want to plug our new series that we're doing on our potential new owners, 777 Partners. The first interview that I did with Paul Brown went up yesterday. Now it was fantastic interview with Paul. I'm not sure if anyone read his article yet, but some really interesting insight. We will have another video coming up with Chris Beasley from the Echo. That will come up as well over the weekend. We're just trying to gain as much insight into these fairly mysterious investment group, really. Just want everyone to be fully informed, so we all know what we're getting in for, really, if the takeover does get ratified. So do definitely check that out if you haven't. But thank you all very much for listening. Do join us next week, where hopefully we have another 3 points to talk about. We're feeling just as good as we are now. But Ellis, thank you very much as always. Thank you all very much for listening, and we will see you all next week. Goodbye.